welcome to the Scoop, the Sonnenberg Scoop. I'm Farah,
And I'm Nicole.
and our topic today is neurodiversity in dating and what that looks like, and kind of getting into all the topics of that and more. So we're just going to start right away. And Nicole, I'm just going to jump right in and ask you the first question. And my big kind of questions that people ask me when we talk about this, or when we have speed dating and things like that. We had one, what, 2 weeks ago, week ago, 2 weeks,
Yeah, a few weeks ago. Yeah.
a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So the big question I have, or the response that I will get when people kind of pull me off to the side, or if they see something like that, is, so um what does that like what does that look like, and can two people, when it comes to neuro diversity and just dating and speed dating, does that look different? What does that mean, and how do you move forward with that? So I think that would be a really good place to start, is, what is the difference? Is there a difference?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are like prerequisites that we would want to kind of like teach or like hone in on in the dating realm for neurodiverse individuals. I don't think that I think it's people think that it looks different, but it really doesn't look that different. All people date and can have intercourse and have that ability. They have the ability to have relationships. So there are, like I said, like some teaching moments and practices for that. But how they actually get to know people is not that much different than anyone else.
So how do you said prerequisites, how do you decide when, like, so for example, let's just take the speed dating that you guys did. What does that look like, and how do you decide who is appropriate, I guess would be maybe the word to use, or and what will be successful, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think just like any dating setting, you would want a group of people that share like similar interests. And so kind of putting that neurodiversity piece on to that kind of lends itself to have similar individuals or individuals that might have some challenges in how they communicate. So a lot of the prereqs for that are developing communication and being able to have like a reciprocal conversation between another person. And then I think it gets a little tricky because most of the dating platforms are all like online, which can be challenging when you have communication barriers to be able to like go back and forth. And then there's also some like with communication, you talk about like body language, and you talk about like, is somebody engaged with me? Are they understanding what I'm saying? So those are some barriers too that we kind of during the speed dating events, that they had like a series of questions that they could ask the other person. So we kind of came up with a little bit of those prompts for them. So they had like written questions that were appropriate to ask in that setting. I think that sometimes questions that we ask are maybe not as appropriate. So we did prompt with those. And then we did kind of step in as like facilitators if the conversation kind of stopped, or if they weren't, maybe one party wasn't picking up on the other person's body language. Maybe there was like, however you define like some boredom or something like that, where we would kind of intervene. And then we did make sure that they got to talk to a lot of individuals. And that also didn't mean that they talked to the same sex individual either. So they got to build like relationships,
Oh,
whatever
cool.
relationship that meant for them. Yeah.
So now, are these, it was a mix of people that had been with Sonnenberg and not, is that correct?
Yeah, we actually, the Inclusive Being hosted the event. And so a lot of the participants were from the community and
Okay.
outreach from the community. Amelia and I kind of like we're talking about hosting another one because we got a decent amount of people, and it was just outreach, community outreach. It wasn't that
Okay.
we like advertised a lot or like kind of pulled people into it. And I think that the more that we do some of that, the more outcome we would have. But we had a decent amount. We had, what did we have? I want to say like 12-ish, I want to say. I might not get
That's
that right,
good.
but
What
yeah,
age
and
group?
yeah, and we had like about like four females, the rest male. And then, and you never know like what like sexual orientation they define themselves by. And so that is something that we consider as well. And
Yep.
making sure that they all got to talk to one another and they all got to build those relationships. We kind of took like phone numbers afterwards so that we could help exchange that. They had a sheet where they had all the names of all the individuals that they could talk to. And they circled like yes or no if they were interested in a relationship with that person. And then we kind of took it upon ourselves to exchange the phone numbers because we didn't want them to tell one another that if they were interested or not interested, mostly to not hurt like somebody's feelings, or that like rejection piece
Yeah.
is hard for all of us. So we wanted to like avoid that as much as possible, like them telling their partner, like I'm not
So you were
interested.
so you were saying that, you know, you just had people sitting down and talking in general, so it could be a friendship even, right? So they could be emailing or calling. I'm not sure how you facilitated that. Would it be something too where someone would email or call saying, "Oh, I'd like to be your friend. I thought we had a lot in common," or whatever it may be? Is that something that you did too, as far as writing down? They said, "Oh, I'd like to be friends with this person," or
Yeah, so we prompted them at the beginning to circle yes or no for friendships or romantic partners. So either or.
oh, okay.
So just if they were overall interested in that person, they would circle yes on that form. And then we had a list of phone numbers that we would just like exchange numbers kind of for them.
That's very cool. And then isn't it, I don't have the data in front of me, but I've read about it, but isn't sexual identity something that is higher in the autism or different ability population? Isn't that a higher percentage of, what am I trying to say? Different sexual attractions besides female to male, male, like, so.
Yeah, sexual orientation, yeah, between other sexes or how you define yourself is a little bit higher in the neurodiversity kind of realm. I don't know the percentages offhand. I'm not super specialized in that. However, there is as far as like ABA is concerned, there is a large community of individuals who are doing a lot of research on that. To the point where we do have a sex ABA conference every
Oh,
year,
I
which
didn't
is
know that.
super fascinating. So if you get the chance to do it, it's absolutely wonderful. And you can also actually a part of that group has a certification in which you can be a BCBA and like a sex like educator.
Oh,
Where
okay.
you get like CEUs for that, and you get like a certificate to kind of practice in that realm, which is also very interesting. So there's a group that is absolutely fantastic with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's super interesting. I know I have read some different research articles. I remember it was quite much higher than the general population. I mean, this, I don't know how old I can't remember. It was a few years ago actually that I had read that. But I think what I've also been asked is how does one that has different kind of comprehension at different levels, at different understanding of what sexual orientation or those kind of things, how does one maneuver or work through that with somebody that may have a hard time understanding that piece of that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a great need for that, to be able to teach like sex education to adults in a different format. And really, like you're really talking like more like preteens. I know
Okay,
that schools have like a sex education course that you take, but it does need to be modified for a different population and the population we're speaking of.
right,
And like just like anyone else, like the earlier that you kind of start those like foundational skills, the better, because it might take a little bit longer to like retain that information or to generalize that information to like other people and environments. So you do want to start a little bit earlier on, because like it goes pretty deep. So it can be like starting with like private versus public. And
yeah,
then it goes even further. And talking about things like masturbation and what that like looks like for each individual and how you teach that is different like per individual too. But there's a lot of resources out there for families that like need them to help provide education on that. So you'll see more and more, I think.
I think
But
so
there are
too.
like some pretty good
Yeah.
reasons. Yeah.
And what I think is interesting, I mean, you have worked more with the adult population than me, or even higher teens, but I do have some experience with that. And I have found it fascinating because it's not really that big of a deal because there's, in general, the kids or the young adults that I've worked with are like, it's just a conversation versus because of the social awareness is a little bit different typically. And so I've learned a lot from some of the clients that I've worked with because they're just very matter of fact. Oh, that's what you do? Oh, okay. So where do you do that? Or whatever. And so
Yeah.
we're usually more, like, oh, okay, how am I gonna, just
Mhm.
gonna, do what I need to do, be a professional about this. And it's been super fun as far as like learning through that because of the questions that are
Yeah.
asked. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very matter of fact
Yeah.
with some of the individuals I work with. So it's just, it's like an everyday kind of conversation, honestly. And it's nothing like different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love about this population is it's just like, oh, okay, so what do I need to do? Or, it depends on obviously the comprehension and where they're at and that kind of stuff. But I thought that was very interesting. When we've worked and the parents are there, they're more uncomfortable, which rightfully so. It's, kind of an interesting topic. And they're like, oh gosh, and their kids like, you know, all right, so let's talk about this again. So
Yeah.
what do I need to do? It's just so refreshing. But anyway, I thought that was fun. Um, so did you see at the speed dating, did you see some matches? And I do have some people talking.
Hmm. Yeah, it was pretty cool. We are going to put a couple videos together to kind of include in here where you will see some of the conversations that took place. They all did fantastic. It was like
Can't
I
wait.
pretty much had a smile on my face the entire time. There wasn't a whole lot of facilitating from like us. It was really, really cool to see. They kind of followed their sheets, asked their questions, and kind of like rotated with the group, things like that. So it was really cool. Got to know each other a lot. And the conversation, like I didn't really see it break that often. I mean, I think they got I don't even remember, like maybe like 10 minutes, like each rotation to talk to their peer, and it looked good.
I think because my brain's always, thinking of stuff of like how could we help earlier and earlier. I mean, I think that's a really good because you can think of precursors of what or prerequisites of okay, we could be doing this at this age and working on this so we can help with what could help with that facilitation or just what could help them, you know what I mean, with those questions, that body language that they misinterpreted that for this or or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I think that would be really exciting to be able to take into Sonnenberg and break that down for those kind of things. I wonder if we could do a survey or we could do something more. I mean, you probably already have done this. I don't know why I'm saying this, but
Well, we do have our teen group. The after school program made a teen group. I don't remember when, a couple years ago, I want to say, where the teen group is like for these topics. Now,
okay.
it's a smaller population within Sonnenberg that it like participates in this group, but we would love more. But the teen group does talk all the way through, like we talk about relationships, we talk about dating, we talk about drugs, we talk about intercourse, we talk about like contraception, we talk about sexual identity. So we talk about all those like areas. And these are like more like pre-teens
Okay.
in the
I
group.
love that.
So we do have like all of our monthly topics that we discuss throughout. And then we just kind of get a sign off from the parents, like, hey, these are the topics we're talking about. Like, are you okay with this? And then, most of them are like, yes, please,
Yeah.
in our other programs, it's not as like apparent as like this program is, but there are like individual things that we work on. I think the first things to come are like the conversations with other people and like kind of the social cues, like knowing when someone's interested and not interested. And then like the personal information and kind of like who to give that to, when to give it. And we do focus a lot on the internet because most of the things that we do in our social interactions are through the internet. So kind of like what to share, what not to share. We do talk a lot about like cyberbullying and what that looks like, or how like the difference between like getting catfished and not is a big one too.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough for anyone. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Because
absolutely.
you don't know, right? I mean, there's a
Mhm.
whole show on it. Yeah,
There
fishes,
is. Yes, there is.
Um, so interesting. And really nowadays too, the way people meet are on the internet and they don't know them, and the way that they friend, or what, I don't know, there's different, terms or whatever, but friending, I'll just say. And, the way that the dating pool has evolved, and I can say that for my own kids, is it's okay to date somebody wherever and you never see them and you just talk,
Mhm.
like that's
Yeah.
very commonplace now, and that would have never happened when I was a kid. Like well, you couldn't. But it just, the interactions and the way that that looks is really different too. So I think that's fascinating, that, and
Mhm.
probably actually easier for our population
I
because,
It is and it isn't, because like I have clients where it is easier, right? Because they're on like video games or they're on like the internet a lot. And I have other clients where the internet is like a trigger to them.
oh,
And
okay.
then I also have clients where it's very hard because they can't see the person and they can't like see their facial expressions and things like that. Where and they've kind of worked on that for
Yeah.
most of their life, and then they can't see the person, so the conversation kind of ends. Like I have clients who like, I'm like, hey, like let me help you like find a date, so like we'll work on that social media piece together. And I've noticed that, and the conversation's kind of like, hi, and then like, how are you? It's kind of rote, and then it kind of stops. And then there's
Oh,
no, like,
interesting.
I'm like, oh, hey, like that was your moment to ask if they wanted to go to the movies or something. And we're kind of missing those moments, or those opportunities. So
Ah.
that happens too. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I would think in some circumstances it would be good because you can process what you want to say. Because the
Mhm.
pause is typical, right? Because you text or email or whatever it is that you're doing, if you're not doing like a FaceTime or something like that, or in person, that you could kind of think about it. It kind of reminds me of like, and I guess I'm kind of jumping all over, but I'm wondering where like AI is going to play into this too,
Oh,
because
hugely. Yeah.
yeah, because you're going to have things that can do it for you, and you already have that happening, with a bunch of different areas, but that's a whole nother topic. But
Well, I think they have like virtual like dating things
oh, do
too.
they?
Yeah, where you can learn those skills virtually.
Oh, okay.
So there's like some more research coming out. I think they started, I could be wrong, but I think they started more so with like virtual, like vocational skills, like teaching that, and then kind of went to like more like dating kind of thing. So I think they have some of that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. They have so much different things and areas, but yeah, I think it's fascinating to go back to, the thing that I would say 10 years ago for me, or maybe 15 years ago, well, how long have you been at Sonnenberg? 7,
Hmm. I
8?
lost count after 5, but I thought I was going on like 9 because
Okay, so
I'm
9.
really bad. Math is not my strong suit, but
It
I've
is
been
not
here since like 2015. I've been here.
Oh, that
So,
is 9. So when did you start?
like November, December-ish. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll be going on like 9.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so maybe 10-ish years before you came on and like really were talking about all of this and really got
Mhm.
engrossed and excited about it. I quite honestly, my area was probably 10 and under. So I didn't even really think completely about that whole picture. But I would say that if I was thinking about or not thinking about those areas where many people don't or just don't have a misconception, you know, it's really interesting to really talk about this with individuals that are going through puberty. And yes, we talk about menstruation and we talk about, erections and things like that. But to the dating piece of that, and so one of my clients I've talked about with this kind of area, and he talks about like having sexual attraction and those kind of things, but he's like, I really don't want to touch because of sensory. And he's like, I don't really want a person to touch me. I don't want to, it's just gross. Like I'll like, he's okay with doing things to himself. But so have you had that because of the sensory aspect? And I'm curious how you work through that or how you get to that part, because we also have kids or anyone that they're social, but they're antisocial at the same time because, we've had this conversation a little bit before, but how do you move forward with that? And what do you suggest? And I'm just curious about that area, because that's a big misconception that kids on the spectrum or adults in the spectrum don't want to socialize, when that's not necessarily true, but it comes across that way because it's
Mhm.
different, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does come across that they're not social or however you define that, but really there are a lot of environmental variables and like sensory pieces that play into that and the reasons like why that comes across. Which also kind of does make like the internet easier sometimes with some of that too. But I guess what I would say to individuals that like maybe don't want to touch, I think that they like just like anyone else kind of finds a match where like I don't know, like maybe they wouldn't get along with somebody whose like love language is physical
Yeah.
touch. But that doesn't mean that they can't get along with someone who also maybe like that bothers them a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I wish we could almost be like matchmakers because I think we could do it. Like,
I think we could too.
um, I don't know, like finding somebody that has like similar like interests to you, but I also believe that opposites attract. So I think it kind of goes in to like who is like a good match for that person because maybe they don't like to touch right now, but if they had somebody that was a little more affectionate, maybe
True.
they would. I don't really think about it as like changing the individual. They are who they are, and it's kind of like just like we are who we are, and we found a match that worked for us.
Sometimes.
They would
Just
have to
kidding.
do. Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I just joking. Sorry, Jason. Just joking. That's a good point, because how many times, not even talking about sexuality or even dating or anything like that, have we found individuals that are best friends that you're like, how does that work? And then you watch and you're like, that's how that works. Age versus not versus total opposites versus, there's so many times that I would have never guessed that they would have paired. So that's a really good statement. And really, how is that any different than us? You
Mhm.
know, I mean, everybody's different. Some people are more sexual or touchy or not, or, whatever, description you want to give. And it all, it's just kind of a trial and error and getting to know people for people, right? So I think that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. And have you had, or did you have, or in the past, or even at this last dating event, did you have people that were nonverbal and used talkers and things like that, talking to people, or yeah, people that were, had vocal, language that were a match? Did you see that too?
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't have anyone there that used like an AAC device. I did have people who like did struggle with their output of
Okay.
communication where it was like harder to understand them, and we did facilitate a little bit of that.
Okay.
So had there have been an AAC device, I think yeah, it would have been helpful.
Yeah.
And I would not count that out at all. Because there are individuals who are very, very fluent with their language, and it's all AAC output.
Awesome.
So,
So
I mean,
there it is, folks. Everybody, come and join.
yeah, no, seriously,
Have fun.
everyone is welcome, no matter what way. That's the point of it.
Yep.
It doesn't matter like how you communicate. If you are motivated to want to be in a relationship, come.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially for anybody, a parent that's watching, or a sibling, or just the individual that's watching. If anybody is, watching over this, I think that's really important to know, is that I've heard families, whether that's a sibling, parent, guardian, um, be hesitant because they're like, well, I don't know how much this person will get out of it, or I'm worried because they don't have the vocal output that others may or may not, and so I just want to encourage that. Is I think that also, as we've seen, Nicole, as we even hire staff, that there's such a big misconception on the understanding and what our population, people on the spectrum, or neurodiverse people are understanding. And just
Mhm.
because you're not talking like you or I right now, Nicole, doesn't mean that the understanding isn't there and the needs aren't there. I think that's just really important for the public and for parents and guardians to understand that. Not that they don't, I'm not saying that everybody, but that can be a very big misconception. We've had staff that are interviewing come in and talk louder, talk slow, talk like, because there's just such a stigma still sometimes, not all the time, but some people, when you don't have knowledge, right? It's just ignorance. So um, I'm glad that we can talk about this and educate, even with interviews coming in to educate, whether they come on board with us or not. It's still an education piece of, they can hear you. It has nothing to do with,
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
this,
I
right?
have clients that don't speak like vocal verbally, and that understand like more
Completely.
than I even do about the world, honestly, and like about other people, and it just how they show it is just different.
Yep.
Um, I also have clients that are very, very fluent on their AAC devices, like very fluent, like they could write an
Amazing.
entire like essay, and have a conversation with you for hours, with an output system. So,
Yeah. And I think what's cool being in this fields, and for as long as, I mean, my whole adult life, I've been in this field. And when I think back when I was 18 and what I am now and what I know now and what I will learn moving forward too, because there's so much always to learn, is, you have kids that I worked with when they were 2 or 3 and they're, adults, and what they say, that when they were 6, for example, that seems to be like after a few years of ABA, their memory and what they're understanding and the recalls seems to be a little bit more clear, is they'll talk about the things that happened or didn't happen, and that is fascinating to me. It's such an education. So we can go, okay, yeah, that did make a difference or that didn't. Or even with Devin, when we interviewed with Devin and we talked to him and he was like, I know who was patient and who was not. I could tell whether that was their body language or their vocal language. The calmness of people is such a big deal. And I've heard that over and over again, especially with the adults that I had when they were little. And just, even when they said, I didn't like it when you did this. And I'm like, okay, explain that. Sometimes I don't remember, right? Because there's so many things that had happened, and they explain it. And many times they even said, I was mad at you. And I wouldn't have known that, because if I do remember, I'm like, oh, you were mad? And they're like, yeah, but now I understand why you did that. And with the patience and the calm of working through that, it made sense. But I didn't at first. And, so is there anything that you have to kind of contribute with that, or that is interesting? Because that's always fascinating to me to hear about that when they were so young, or just, can remember and talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like anyone else, like, what happens in your life is part of like your learning history, and it's part of like, and it can be like, there can be trauma attached to that. And it is nice to be able to like work through that. And I think that's where the older, the individuals that we service get, sometimes the more that they're able to like talk about their experiences, which is also kind of why we see some who like talk poorly about ABA,
For
because
sure.
they're
I
old
mean,
enough to do that and they've experienced that. And like anything, there's good experiences and there's bad experiences with anything that you do. And so, but it is very interesting to hear kind of like where people come
yeah,
from. And what makes a person is also like their history.
100%. And I think what I love about being in this field, again, since I was 18, and I'm old now, so just seeing the progress and why ABA is so great, because you're constantly changing. So things that, I did a long time ago, and how it's changed till now, you can see the why we changed it or it's evolved, and why things remain, embedded because it was so effective. So you have kind of the whole spectrum of things. And I just really think it's amazing, because you can see that too in the outcomes, really. And what I mean by outcomes is, when there's things that come up that I'm talking about with adults that I work with, and they're talking about, okay, I was, I mean, this particular adult is like, I was 6 or I was 8 or I was 10 when that happened, and it was February 15th, and I'm sure they're right. And it's so fascinating because, you can use those strengths for everything for the future, and things that work or didn't work, like, oh, that's the why. And, so anyway, I just think that's where the experience is so valuable, and the listening. You got to listen. That's the
Yeah.
thing that a lot of adults have a problem with, is that people aren't listening to where it was good, bad, or in between, right? If you want to talk about it in that kind of way. So yeah, so I just think this is amazing. I think it's a great education to give to our listeners and to parents and staff, of just how important, you know, this area is, and
Mhm.
those wants and needs, and what we can do with this area. I have a lot to learn myself, and I'm excited to kind of see us move forward in this with our future.
Mhm.
Yay. What's to come, right?
Yeah.
To come,
Yeah.
guys. We got some fun stuff coming.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot for me to continue to learn and grow in, as well as always, in this area. And I mean, we are going to have another speed dating event like around September.
Okay.
So we're kind of looking for that. And I'm working with a couple individuals right now to kind of prep for that because they're excited. So
Oh, I like that. So you're getting people, you're working on like some skills and some stuff to help prompts or, what have you, to
yeah.
facilitate for September. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
because we really want a girlfriend. We
Oh, I love it.
we're also really funny, however, which is a great quality to have. However, sometimes inappropriate. So we're just gonna kind of work on that a little bit. Find some like
Oh, it's so
better,
fun.
maybe good jokes to.
Yeah. Is there a way, or are you already doing this, that you like submit a bio or something,
Oh,
like,
that'd be cool. Yeah,
wouldn't that be fun? Like,
we could. I think that would be really great. That's a good idea for like our next time around because we did have people sign up and maybe they could just give like a little bit more about themselves. Yeah.
like I could see myself, like when you said appropriate and not appropriate jokes and things like that. Like I would want somebody that can, like I would be like, I like to laugh and I like to tell jokes, and sometimes
Mhm.
they're not always appropriate, or people don't get it, or whatever. So that would be fun to kind of, I don't know, it'd just be kind of fun. It'd be a good skill to kind of reflect on yourself too, of how you see yourself too. I think that would be kind of
Mhm.
cool. I don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes like we do have goals for like our clients to like talk about their like strengths and what would make them a good partner, either like friendship or romantically, like what makes that, what characteristics. And it would be cool to have like it's kind of like a dating profile, I would say.
Yeah.
Where yeah, you can write down those qualities. Sometimes it's hard for them and everyone else to kind of come up with like well, what makes me great? And it's sad that that's so hard, but that does happen. So it would be cool to like
It'd
have
almost be,
yeah profile.
yeah, it'd almost be fun to do like a Sonnenberg or a something app where you have everybody
Yeah.
on there. Wow, like, look at me, I'm like getting really excited about this now. So like, you know what I mean? You put your picture and maybe how you communicate, like what you like, like what you like to do, or I don't know. I just
I
think that
mean, love on the spectrum, we're coming for you.
ah, I'm telling you, like this could be big time. We could even
That is
do,
one of my
yeah,
favorite shows, but yes, an app would be cool.
that would be so fun. I wonder if Devin would like to do that, like help
Maybe.
us with that, because he does the apps, and well, I don't know if he does the apps, but he does I don't know, maybe
He
that's
does
something.
YouTube. He did teach us how to use YouTube.
He told you how to use you. Oh,
Well, yeah,
he.
yeah, because we didn't, I forget the term. Something to like make your video,
Oh, it was.
like, what is
Um,
it?
I think he was talking about a thumbnail sketch, or something like
Oh, okay.
that's an art. That's an art thing. I don't know, but we weren't communicating and seeing the same language, so I don't know if that's what he meant, or if he understood what I meant. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
he was talking about a picture or something that you put on. I don't know. I,
Yeah.
I'm not very tech savvy, so I might have the wrong thing. I keep
Yeah.
trying, but yeah, I think that would be really cool to think about something like that for the future, because you could even have age groups or something, or you know what I mean? So you have kind of more prerequisites. I always say that word wrong.
That's actually the age group thing is actually very challenging for
Because
some.
of where they're at.
Yeah, because for some of the individuals that we work with to kind of understand
Yeah.
what an appropriate age is too. So that would also be
It
good
could be
too.
challenging.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's something to think about of how we could categorize that or help with that. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I'm always thinking, I think that that's just so important, because again, that we want obviously the best quality of life, and to feel purpose, and to feel, joy and pleasure and humor. And that, I think that's all super important. So that would be a great area, and probably a good area to start on for many. You know, so I don't know, something to think about, but this has been awesome. I think it's such a great topic. I think we can continue to talk about this and maybe schedule something, do another podcast maybe in September, October after you guys have another speed dating and how that's, you know, evolving and pivoting with time, because I think that you'll add and pivot and do different things based off of what you did before, of course. So I think that this is a great topic to continue with, and I'm excited to hear more and just what we do more at Sonnenberg too, you know, and how we program and just support in this area. So I'm really excited to hear more about that. So yeah, do you have anything else, Nicole? I mean, we have videos we're posting in all of this, so they'll be seeing that. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Back there after there was some challenge, but it didn't prepare for your
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We are going to have our next podcast with Nissia and Scott. I just wanted to announce that we've been waiting months and very excited about that podcast that we'll be doing in July. So please tune in for that. They have been our mentors since 2020, and we have lots of great questions and just really to pick their brains and hear. They've been in the field, both BCBAs, and really, you know, go all over the United States, probably the world too. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming because they're always flying everywhere, you know, talking about
They're famous.
They are famous, like famous.
And they're in our field, they are, yes.
Yes, in the field they are, and we're just so excited because they've really helped and are helping. We're doing a training on ACT and MVC kind of combined for Sonnenberg, and just like our own supervisorial training with communication. So we're doing all these 8 different areas, and then just in general the field that they, you know, work in and diversity and things like that. So tune into that next month. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great week. Bye.
Thank you.
music.